If you are a part of a marginalized community, it can be very challenging participating in fandom conversations. And as a Godzilla fan who has spent the last 10 years trying to cultivate conversations about identity, politics, and social justice with regard to, fandom dynamics, the characters, the movies, so on and so forth, it's been met with a lot of, retaliation and frustration from privileged groups. But despite that, I always really appreciate when I see fellow fans creating important conversations about such. And recently, the reason why I'm bringing this up is there was a thread on Twitter, a very important conversation initiated by Destiny, who also goes by Kaiju Hime, which, by the way, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. Essentially, this conversation was about the significance of why we should hire a woman to continue the MonsterVerse after Godzilla vs. Kong. And this conversation ultimately revealed some very significant, details, including the fact that in 67 years there has not been one woman who has directed a Godzilla film, and even more interestingly, there has not been a woman who has directed any of the Mothra films, which is essentially Toho's, one of Toho's only female kaiju characters. Of course, in this conversation, while it's been very meaningful and beneficial, and while there's been a lot of support, there's also been a lot of people who have been reacting militantly, and naturally people whose privilege has sheltered them and shielded them from having any sort of investment in these types of important conversations. And I, through this video, want to speak to two different groups of people. The first group of people are the people who want to have these conversations. Please don't stop speaking out. There are going to be people who react very militantly, but I think having these conversations are very important. I personally do think that it is important that a woman eventually direct a, Godzilla film or another giant monster film, considering that that is just another facet of representation, of creative representation, and women out there need to be able to see women being represented in these empowering creative positions. And there should be no shame in that. And if it doesn't directly affect you because you are one of those privileged groups, then it shouldn't really matter to you. If anything, what should matter to you are, the large amounts of people in the fandom who feel underrepresented, who, want to be able to see, empowering creative figures represented, right? And if you are one of those people who's very apt, whose first thoughts in their mind are, well, this is ridiculous. Why should we have to worry about this type of thing? Godzilla's not about politics, social justice, identity, none of that. I really want you to think carefully about how important these characters are and these stories are and these films are to different groups of people, all right? Different groups of people take something different away from these films. So many people might find the representation in the films important. Many people might relish and relate in Godzilla as a character or Mothra as a character. I've made countless videos about this in the past. Why should we gatekeep or make people feel guilty for having conversations about this when those conversations aren't threatening your enjoyment of the films or characters in any way? Okay? So, I still personally believe that the Godzilla fandom is unbelievably diverse, and I think that that diversity should be celebrated. If you are a part of those privileged groups, and mind you, I have my own privileges that I have to constantly check too. My privilege and other people's privilege, having that talked about isn't virtue signaling. Okay? It's simply educating. It's simply creating a conversation so people can fully understand how different groups of people can connect with the stories and the characters, and why it's important for those people to see representations of themselves making the creative decisions and participating in the processes of creating these characters and stories. So there should not be any shame surrounding that. And if you have any sort of privilege and you see people celebrating or having an important conversation regarding politics, social justice, or identity, don't shame them or make them feel guilty for having that conversation. Simply listen and find a way to, in a meaningful way, participate. Okay? Anyway, share your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And to all of my friends who are in the Godzilla fandom, thank you for always empowering and encouraging me. And I really do appreciate when you create important conversations about social justice, identity, and politics in the context of our fandom and these films and stories and characters that we love dearly.